Now, what's that phrase? What lurks beneath? You know, isn't that what you makes you think about?
Of a horror film.
Well, we'll hear more of that in a minute. After being dropped into the depths of the jungle by helicopter, adventurer Ash Dykes and his team broke not one but two world records during a grueling 37-day expedition.
So they dealt with sleep deprivation, hallucinations, malnutrition. Add on top of that a few scorpion stings.
And the stuff that lurks in the water.
Exactly. The first challenge saw them reach the summit of Suriname's tallest mountain in record time. 5 days, 8 hours, 35 minutes. Oh, no, that wasn't enough. They then went to set another record, becoming the first team to row the length of one of the world's most remote rivers, the Kopanam, by kayak.
So the whole expedition saw the team cover 372 miles across their 37-day adventure. Despite taking on such a grueling challenge, team managed to have fun along the way, did they? Let's have a look.
So we've just come across fresh jaguar footprints.
Well, I'm very pleased to say Ash is here. You
Great
okay?
to be here.
Are you okay?
I'm safe, yeah. I lost 3 toenails. I got a nasty infection. I had to sort of squeeze out this bacteria in the form of pus and blood, covered up. I've recovered.
Sorry, hold on. Can I just say, we know you're all watching Breakfast. This might be just a little bit icky.
You don't mess around, do you? You jump in the deep end, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you say jump in, we were jumping in. We were practically swimming with caiman, electric eel, stingray, giant river otters. We saw everything out there. We stunted piranha, which was our main source of food that we would pull out, and they were this big.
What's piranha taste like?
Very good. Very bony and hard to descale and gut, but it actually tastes good, especially when you're starving.
Of that list of things you mentioned a moment ago, how many of those bit you?
So we were stung by a scorpion twice, my team member. We check our boots, and we always check our gloves, because we've got machete in hand hacking through, but he put his hand in the glove and received 2 nasty stings from the most venomous scorpion in Suriname.
And what did you have to kind of counter that?
Luckily, we did have all the right medication, but it started to subside. But for him, it was worse than the sting of a bullet ant, which is notoriously known as the worst sting in the world. But he was OK. He started to recover. The rest of us, we had army ants invaded our camp, and it had full-grown men stood on the riverbank as they just went through camp and destroyed everything in their path.
Tell us more about army ants. I don't know about army ants.
So army ants, they just come through the jungle, and pretty much what they do, they clear the jungle. So you'll have insects trying to escape. They'll be climbing the trees, they'll be running away, they'll be flying, and if they don't, everything is digested by the army ants.
They're like locusts on the ground.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And our producer, Jacob Hudson, he stood in the wrong place, literally had ants in his pants, was like screaming, had to jump in the river. And so, everything's out there. You're just surrounded by so much life, but it's also beautiful. We went 34 days without seeing a single human, only carvings from potentially thousands of years ago by the indigenous, where they would sharpen their tools. And then we were coming across wildlife that had never seen a human before.
These images, it does look absolutely stunning, and I can see where we talked about the fun, you can see where the challenge and the delight comes from.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of the scale of the records you were trying to beat, because we hear a lot about records being broken.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of the challenge that you're trying to set yourself, notwithstanding all the stuff you already talked about in terms of the wildlife.
Yeah, so this was a first. So the source to sea was actually first. So not only had it never been done before, it had never been attempted, because to get to the source is so hard. You have to go by helicopter as close as you can, and you have to physically look out the window for a place to land. So we were worried that we might have to jump into deep water, but luckily we found a sandbank, and then from there, it was all a guessing game of how we can possibly get to the source. Very hard.
Why did you do it?
This is pretty much my career. I've been doing this now for 12 years, records all over the world, produced a number of TV shows, but also we partnered up with Free the Wild. I don't know if you know Cher, the singer. She's the founder of Free the Wild, and they're doing everything they can to try to keep wildlife from being exported and from being behind bars and zoos and as domesticated pets. So we were logging and recording the wildlife along the way, reporting back to them, which was amazing as well.
What did you see that you were hoping to see and you did see and it was just magical?
The wild jaguar. The jaguar was one of those
Elusive,
that...
very
yeah,
elusive.
very elusive, yeah. And we played the noise of a jaguar on a speaker to try to attract it back because it left the riverbank, and it just came back to the riverbank and just stared at all of us for about 2 minutes, which was just beautiful. But we saw so much wildlife, monkeys above us in camp, so much in the river as well. We saw capybara, which is the biggest rodent in the world. They grow up to 80 kilograms. Snakes, spiders, the Goliath bird-eating tarantula, just full of life out there. It was absolutely stunning.
The jaguar we saw. Oh, OK.
That's the tarantula.
So
the
how
Goliath,
big is
yeah.
that? Spider?
That was they can grow up to the same size as a dinner plate, largest in the world.
And where is that? Is that your picture?
Yeah,
So
this
where
is
is that
Dick
relative
Lock's.
to where you're standing right next to it? Are you?
That is, yeah, that's right next to us. That's Dick Lock who took that photo. And normally you see them at night, but this was out during the day, which we got lucky for.
How did you sleep at night?
In a hammock. In a hammock, and sometimes in the boat.
And did you take shifts?
No. In the boat, maybe sometimes we did. In the kayak, the last 3 days, the reason we were suffering with sleep deprivation was because we were trying to stick with the tide. So that meant that we would have to paddle through the night. And we went 3 nights and only had under 5 hours sleep. Just sleeping in water, sitting in water all day, all night.
If we were to see, I don't know, a 6-year-old Ash, what would he have been like? Were you always searching out, I don't know, risk, adventure? What were you like?
Yeah, I was always very competitive, very sporty. I played all sports in school, very athletic. But I'd say the adventure side didn't really kick in until I was about 16, 17. And then when I left for travelling at age 19, I was doing a lot of reckless, sometimes illegal adventures. I was doing a lot of Muay Thai, fighting for money. I was a scuba diving instructor. And then things started to grow bigger and better until Mongolia, which was the world first record.
It's interesting you used the word reckless there.
Yeah, very.
Risk, I mean, clearly, everything you've described sounds risky.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it just does.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But we were a solid team, so it was Jacob Hudson, Dick Lock and Matt Wallace.
Here's the one
There
of
you go,
smiling.
yeah. So the 2 middle guys, they are wildlife experts. So they know all of the different wildlife, whether they're venomous, whether they're a threat or not. So they were a vital part of the expedition.
Who had the most irritating habits?
Who had the most? Dick farted a lot.
OK, we are on breakfast, Jamie, OK?
Yeah.
So you started off with the pus in your leg and now you're talking about windy pops. That's...
It gets worse, but we'll leave it
At
there.
least you're in the outdoors. That kind of
Yeah,
doesn't matter so
right,
much, does
right.
it? But you all kind of... had you been on expeditions before?
We hadn't. No, this was our first time.
That's always a risk, isn't it?
Massive risk, yeah, because you don't know how we're going to react to certain scenarios
And to stressful situations, yeah.
A lot of stress, yeah. It was very difficult for the cameraman, for Jacob Hudson. There was a lot of times where he broke emotionally because it was a lot for him, never done anything like this before.
When did you stop laughing about who had the ants in their pants?
Jacob, the cameraman.
When did you stop laughing?
We didn't.
Still not.
We're still going.
Yeah, congratulations on
Yeah,
the trip.
no, thank you so
Glad you're
much.
safe and sound.
Yes, appreciate that. And look to get a TV show produced and aired, hopefully, this time in the UK.
You've got some
Fingers
great
crossed.
footage, so you can see it on social media. Ash Dykes,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's